Welcome to the 5th anniversary special of the Bernard Lee Poker Show. For the last 5 years, I've really had the privilege of interviewing some poker superstars, up-and-coming players, and also poker industry professionals. And today is no exception. We are going to have the privilege of interviewing the man who changed the face of poker forever, the 2003 World Series Main Event Champion, Chris Moneymaker.
Thanks for having me on. It's good to actually get to talk to you.
Chris, it's been almost a decade since your victory. Do you think about it like it's almost yesterday?
Sometimes it seems like it's 100 years ago. Yeah. Other days it seems like it was yesterday. But I try not to dwell on it too much, and it's in the past, so you got to create the future.
Tell us how you got started in poker, because you didn't just go to a casino and play poker a lot. You actually dabbled in other things.
Yeah, actually I was a blackjack player or betting on sports, but I was really bad at both. But I like being in the casino atmosphere. I like drinking. I just like the whole environment. And so I wanted to be there, and I quickly figured out eventually that I could play poker and stay there all day, drink, have fun, and not go broke every single time I went.
Well, you play poker at the casinos, and obviously you start having a little bit of success. How did you get very serious about the game, and what did you do to try to really improve?
Well, success is a weird term because I wasn't going broke, so I guess that's successful. I wasn't really making money,
right,
but I wasn't going broke. And it wasn't until I'm sitting down in Tunica and the guy goes, you can play online poker. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, there's a place called Poker Stars. You go log on, you can sit in your home and play poker. Well, now this was, revolutionary for me. I didn't have to drive 4 hours to go to a casino. I did like the atmosphere, but I could gamble. The gambling was probably the thing that drew me, and the drinking. So I could drink from my house and play online poker.
Right.
It was great.
Well, a lot of people know that you qualified for $39 and then ultimately won the 2003 World Series Main Event. But I don't think everyone knows the story that you weren't trying to qualify for the World Series with that $39 seat.
It's a complete mistake. I didn't even mean to register for satellite. Back then on Poker Stars, they didn't really list the tables very well.
Right.
Now you go on, it's cash, satellite, it's really well defined. Back then it was sort of all thrown together. And I saw a table with 17 people sitting. They started with 18, so I clicked on it real fast to get my seat because sit and goes back then didn't go off that quickly.
Right.
So I got on real fast. I only had like $60 on my account, so I thought it was a cash tournament. And I get on there and I said a few expletives right when I registered and saw that it was a satellite to a 615 tournament the next weekend. I was like, oh, I just wasted $39. This is horrible because you don't make money until after the main event, which is not going to happen.
Right. Well, you get the 615. You play in that. Now you're playing in this one. You're down to the final four. 3 get a seat. The fourth one gets about $8,000 in cash, and it was coincidental. That number was very similar to another number you had in your own personal situation, right?
This is very true. It was similar to my credit card debt, and it would have fit very nicely to take that. And I was actually trying to work a deal, 4 or 5-handed. It was actually 5-handed. Where I was trying to get that $8,000 and just walk away. I was one of the chip leaders, and I said, I don't want the seat. I'm not going to go play against the best in the world. I just want the $8,000 in cash. Let me walk away.
Right.
There was another guy on the table by the name of Got Milk. He won the 4th place as well. So we went back and forth trying to figure out who won the 4th place. The other guys, sort of wanted the seat, but would have taken 4th. But me, back then you couldn't sell the seat. You had to take it.
Right.
I mean, you're tied in. So $8,000 in cash versus a seat that provides no dollar value is a no-brainer to me. I turned this $39 into $8,000. It was life-changing money at the time.
Well, somebody was telling you, don't do it.
I had a buddy that was on the phone with me. He was watching the tournament go down from his house. It's like, dude, don't do this. You got this. Go play in the World Series. It's it's once in a lifetime opportunity. Listen, I'll give you $5,000. Take it. Put that. Plus you get $1,000 for winning the tournament. So that's $6,000. Take that. You're almost close to 8. Plus you get to go play in the main event. Just do this for me. I'll give you the money. So like, all right. I'll lose $2,000 on the deal and take the seat. I thought maybe I can sell another $2,000 to somebody and make up the $8,000, and I'll have a seat for basically $8,000 of the value. So I go ahead and win the seat, obviously, and we're about 2 weeks out from the main event. Well, about a week later, the same buddy that called me and told me to take the seat, well, he was a pretty big degen gambler like I was back in the day. He had about $15,000 to his name, and he had a bad week sports betting and lost every dime of it. So he didn't have the $5,000 to give me, and said, I'm sorry, I can't do it, this and that. So I had to go to my dad, get $2,000. I went to another friend, he got $2,000. So I'm stuck with $4,000 and a seat to the main event, which is nowhere close to where I wanted to be.
But it worked out, obviously. Obviously, that 1 week of sports betting is probably the worst $1.25 million decision that your buddy ever made. But obviously, the rest is history. When we come back, we'll talk with Chris Moneymaker about that tournament that changed the face of poker forever. When we return here on the 5th anniversary special of the Bernard Lee Poker Show.
Card Player is the world's most widely distributed poker publication, with an industry-leading magazine and website bringing poker fans insight into their favorite game with player profiles, tournament coverage, and in-depth analysis of the gaming industry. From the World Series of Poker to high-stakes cash games, Card Player is bringing you the scoop on everything you need to know about the poker world. You can get a subscription to our print magazine, download our app for the iPad or iPhone, or purchase a digital subscription. For more information, check us out on cardplayer.com.
One of the premier radio shows in the poker industry, the Bernard Lee Poker Show has brought you the best in poker news and interviews since 2007. Lee has interviewed poker's industry professionals, rising superstars, and icons of the poker world.
This is Danny Negreanu.
Dennis Phillips.
This is Eric Seidel.
This is Phil Hellmuth.
Listen to the Bernard Lee Poker Show on WBNW 1120 AM in Boston and RoundersRadio.com.
The Bernard Lee Poker Show. Don't miss it.
He is the 2005 World Series champ, Joseph Hashim. Welcome to the
Not
show.
many people can drag me out of bed at 8 o'clock in the morning, let me tell you that.
Welcome back to the 5th anniversary special of the Bernard Lee Poker Show. We are here with a true poker icon, the 2003 World Series Main Event Champion, Chris Moneymaker. Well, Chris, how did you prepare for the 2003 World Series Main Event? Because you had never played a tournament in a casino before.
Yeah, I hadn't, and it was a little bit weird. I went out a week early, and I took the $4,000 that I got from my dad and my friend and went and played sit and goes and played little small side events, like real small side events, and just tried to get my feet wet playing No Limit. I was so worried about giving off tells and not being able to pick up tells that I tried to do what I could for a week to prepare.
Let's talk about going into Binion's, because back then, I know now it's at the Rio, but back then it was in the famed Binion's Horseshoe. So you walk in there, it's really the atmosphere of a old school gambling poker room. What was it like walking in, seeing all the famous main event champion pictures on the wall, Phil Hellmuth, Johnny Chan, Doyle Brunson, the $1 million bill wall? What was it like walking into Binion's?
It's really a surreal experience, something you can never see anywhere else because there's so much history there. The ceilings are super low. It's really a weird space.
Right.
And they got poker tables lined up in hallways. They're just jam-packed everywhere. They've took out slot machines to put poker tables, and then you go over and you see the wall, you see the money, and it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to walk into that place. And I'm sad to say that it's not there anymore. Of course, they wouldn't hold it anymore, but it was definitely a unique place in poker history that if you play poker, you've got to go see the place sometime.
So Chris, you've talked about this in the past, that you were nervous. In today's world, we're talking 6, 7, 8,000 people in the main event. But back then, 839 was still a record. A lot of people coming in, but obviously a little bit more intimate, and you recognizing a lot more players. How did your nerves play into your ability to play over the first couple of days?
Well, I was obviously super nervous going in, but then I realized that you get 10,000 in chips, and the blinds are 25-50. When you're playing online, you're playing with 20, 30 big blind stacks. Right. You didn't really think about it in those terms back in the day, but I just knew that I had tons of chips, so I didn't have to do anything. So I knew I could get over my nerves and sit there and not do anything stupid and last a long time. So my plan was not to play anything but the nuts. If I flop sets or flop nut flushes, that's what I was playing.
Right.
I wasn't going to get involved in trying to make tricky plays. I wasn't going to try and outplay people. If I didn't have the best hand someone was firing into me, I was just going to fold, conserve my chips, and that's what I did for basically 3 days, and it really was quite easy.
Let's talk about some of the famous hands that you played during this tournament. The first one, you knock out Johnny Chan. You have ace-high flush draw with a pair. Johnny Chan has a king-high flush draw in the pair. It seemed to calm you down after you did that, knocking out one of the most historic rounders of famous poker players. Did that really help you?
Of course. Going into the tournament, I only knew 3 poker players. I knew Phil Hellmuth, Doyle Brunson, and Johnny Chan. There's the only 3 poker players I even recognized. I had Dan Harrington on my first day table. I didn't even know who he was.
Right.
It was a lot different back then, obviously. So I found out on day 3 I'm playing with Johnny Chan. He's 2 to my left. And one of your poker icons 2 to your left, that's not what you want to see.
Right.
And for the better part of the day, he, pretty much abused me. I mean, he was 3-betting me quite a bit, and back then, there weren't many people 3-betting, especially light. So I gave him a lot of credit, and I just tried to stay out of his way. I didn't really want to get involved with him. But the hand came up, I was on the button and raised, and we ended up, I flopped like the best possible hand I could have. I figured against Johnny Chan, I can never be dead, and I'm always drawing to live cards. And we somehow got it all in, and I was really happy to see what he flipped up. I really thought he had a bigger ace, and I was going to have to catch. I just didn't think he would put it in with that type hand, but especially given the edge that he probably had or did have over me back then. But after I busted him, I definitely gave me a lot of confidence, and I really felt like I could beat anybody else in the tournament because, to me, he was the ultimate poker player.
Let's talk about the hand that everyone knows about, where you were on the feature table and you actually forgot that you had a hand. And talk about how you almost didn't get to that table because you didn't know where it was.
Well, it came in, it was day 3. This is obviously before I started playing with Chan. It was that morning. And I'm looking for, I think it was table 66 or 76. I knew it was 2 even numbers, but I couldn't find the table. I walked the table, there's no one there. I'm like, we're about ready to start. I can't find out where in the world I'm going. So I find a tournament director like, listen, I can't find this table. Like, oh, you're on the TV table. So me, I'm like, oh. Everybody wants to be on TV. Everybody thinks cool. I didn't want to make a mistake. I didn't want to look like an idiot on TV. So I make my way to the TV table. I'm sitting there, and I said, all right, just don't do anything stupid. Don't make any bad plays. I don't want to look like an idiot in front of my friends and all this stuff. So Howard Letter, Johnny Chan in a hand. I'm in the big blind, and they're in a stare-down battle. So I'm trying to pick up any information I can, which these 2 guys, I have no way of picking up information. I'm just doing the best I can, trying to figure it out. And finally, Johnny, says it's on me, and I'm all red-faced. I'm like, great, I don't want to make a mistake, and I look like a complete boob. I make a pretty big deal of that. I just look like an idiot on TV. And Johnny just looks at me and is like, don't worry about it, kid. That's never going to make TV. And he turned back around and said, unless you win it.
And of course, look, as
made it on TV.
As Murphy's Law states, you make it. The last hand I want to talk about is the final table bubble. You're down 10-handed. You are sitting there with Dan Harrington, Jason Lester, Sammy Farha, and somewhat unknown player maybe. Of course, I'm joking about Phil Ivey. His closest run to that final table, obviously he's bested and made the November 9. But talk about that hand when you had the ace-queen, he had the 9s, the board was queen, queen, 6, 9, and you guys got it all in.
Well, first of all, back then Phil Ivey wasn't Phil Ivey.
Of course, right.
Back then he was just another player. I had no idea who he was. But the final table bubble, what people don't realize is we played for probably 2-3 hours on that bubble. It was a really grueling. It was like 4 in the morning, and I was not going to bust. My hand was going to be strong if I played. And I woke up on the button with ace queen and got around to me, and I had put in a raise, and Ivy actually opened with a raise with the pocket 9s. Lester called with the 10s, and I called, and the flops queen, queen, 6, obviously beautiful. They both checked to me, and I bet $75,000, which Ivy quickly calls, and Lester, who had the better hand in the middle, folded. Ivy has about $400K left at this point. $75,000 was a fifth of his chips, so I figured that was a pretty good bet. Now, I don't want to run him off because I'm almost guaranteed to have the best hand. So a 9 comes on the turn. And he checks. I bet $200,000. I bet half his stack, and he puts the rest of them in. So immediately, I've got a sickening feeling in my stomach that he has something like pair 6s or queen 9. He did raise pre-flop, so I didn't really give him a whole lot of queen 9 range. But pocket 6 is really what I thought he might have had. But I can't fold at this point. And so obviously, I put my other $200,000. If I lose the pot, I'm still at $1 million. He had about $500,000 going in, and I had 1.5. So. I'm still fine. I might just get up and walk away and not play another hand if I lose that hand. But fortunately, as we all know, the ace came on the river, and I started the final table with $2 million in chips.
Well, when we come back, we're going to talk more with the 2003 World Series Main Event Champion. We'll talk about life after the main event. But before we do that, of course, we're going to ask him about the bluff of the century when we return here on the 5th anniversary of the Bernard Lee Poker Show. Hi, I'm Bernard Lee alongside Andy Kaplan, the host of the Eastern Poker Tour's Tournament of Champions. Do you enjoy playing Texas Hold'em?
How about hanging out with your friends, having a couple drinks?
Do you want to improve your game?
How about being on TV?
Well, either way, visit EasternPokerTour.com for a venue closest to you. They award over $500,000 worth of prizes every year. Visit EasternPokerTour.com today.
One of the premier radio shows in the poker industry, the Bernard Lee Poker Show has brought you the best in poker news and interviews since 2007. Lee has interviewed poker's industry professionals, rising superstars, and icons of the poker world.
This is Danny Negreanu.
Dennis Phillips.
This is Eric Seidel.
This is Phil Hellmuth.
Listen to the Bernard Lee Poker Show on WBNW 1120 AM in Boston and RoundersRadio.com.
The Bernard Lee Poker Show. Don't miss it.
Card Player is the world's most widely distributed poker publication, with an industry-leading magazine and website bringing poker fans insight into their favorite game with player profiles, tournament coverage, and in-depth analysis of the gaming industry. From the World Series of Poker to high-stakes cash games, Card Player is bringing you the scoop on everything you need to know about the poker world. You can get a subscription to our print magazine, download our app for the iPad or iPhone, or purchase a digital subscription. For more information, check us out on cardplayer.com.
Hi, this is Chris Moneymaker, and you're watching the Bernard Lee Poker Radio Show. No, you're not. Poker what? The Bernard Lee Poker Show. Don't miss it.
It's the nuts.
Welcome back to the Bernard Lee Poker Show 5th anniversary special. We are talking with Chris Moneymaker, and of course, the question we have to ask is about the bluff of the century. Tell us a little bit about that. To put everything into perspective, you're holding King of Spades, 7 of Hearts. Sammy Farha has Queen of Spades, 9 of Hearts. The board is running 9, 6, deuce, 8, 3. There is a potential flush there on the board, obviously potential straights on the board. We know in retrospect that Sammy has top pair with a queen kicker. Just kind of relive the moment when Sammy's staring you down and trying to make this, because this is truly the turning point, because it really seems to everyone at that moment it was over. It was just a formality from that point. Tell us what it was when he's staring you down and right before you let out that huge sigh of relief.
Well, about 6 hours earlier, Sammy was talking to Amir and asked Amir a question, and they were going back and forth on the river, and Amir wasn't saying anything, and finally Amir said something, and
Right.
Sam snap called.
That's right.
And so I just knew not to say anything. But we went check on the flop, and then he bet 300,000 on the turn, and I picked up a open-ended straight draw and a second nut flush draw, and I figured this is a good spot to sim a bluff and put pressure on him, because I really didn't think he had anything at this point. So I raised 500,000. He quickly called me. When he called me like that, I really felt like he had make middle pair and like maybe the ace of spades. I didn't think he had a flush. I didn't think he had a straight already. I think he re-raises me with a straight and maybe with a flush as well. So I felt pretty good that he didn't have anything at that point. And my plan was to ship just about any river, whether I hit or not, unless a spade come. Then I might have to reevaluate, thinking he might have the ace of spades. Bricked off on the river, and after we had talked in the bathroom about splitting up heads up the money, and he said he wanted more money and I had a bigger chip lead, I knew he wanted to try to grind me down with his experience. I didn't think in a million years he was going to call.
As many people have deemed it, the bluff of the century. You go on to win the 2003 World Series. Really, truly a memorable moment as you go over there, hug your dad, fists and arms in the air. You were quoted as saying afterward that you're going to go back to your old life as an accountant. This won't change my life. And at the time, you really believed that, right?
Of course I did. I went back to work Monday morning, and I was back at work for 8 months. Some things are out of your control, though. I mean, life sort of does what it does to you. And do I regret leaving my job? No. I mean, I'm very happy with my life.
Right.
But my goal was to just go back to work and be a main event winner that never really plays that much poker except for a hobby. I really had no clue that it was going to boom like it did.
Well, let's go back in time, because even though it was less than a decade ago, there was no November 9 back then. The World Series was played in May. There was a tape delay from the minute that you won till it was actually aired on TV. So what was the moment that really changed it all for you, that you said, you know what, I'm not going to be able to stay at work? Was it right after the TV coverage on ESPN?
It wasn't really right after the TV coverage. Actually, the fame and stuff really had nothing to do with me quitting my job. It was when I got second in the WPT the next February.
Right.
I was sitting in my office after I got second. I came back to work the next day, and my boss, who's the owner of the restaurant group, was a pretty decent friend of mine. He walked into the restaurant and said, "You know what, Chris? We really appreciate you staying here and working with us, but there's better things in this life for you than sitting in this little room and doing this accounting work. So basically, if you don't quit, we're going to fire you." And that's basically how I left my job.
Yeah.
I told him, yeah, no problem, I understand, and I probably do need to be doing other things.
Right.
So we hired someone, I trained him how to do my job, and then I skedaddled.
What was it like watching yourself on TV? Anybody who experiences that, I know for myself, it's very weird to be watching. It's not a mirror, but it's kind of reliving your life. What was it like for you?
Well, first of all, we were playing a poker game the night that it came on. It came on a Tuesday night because we had a Tuesday night poker game back then. And I'm sitting there, and everybody quiets down. It's already come on, and I flash across the screen for the first time, and everybody's like, "Yeah, yeah." I'm like, I just turned to my buddy, and I was like, "Dude, am I really that fat?" I had no idea I was that big. I mean, I know the TV had weight, but damn, I'd put on some pounds, and I was a skinny kid.
Yeah.
So that was the first thing that sort of hit me. It was a little bit surreal. I made me want to go on a diet.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, take the tape and go really, really forward in time. 2003 World Series, and you said WPT second place finish, the one that Phil Gordon knocks out two players at the same time. Now we go to 2011, and we go to the PCA, the PokerStars Caribbean Adventure. And this is an event, 1,560 players. It is the crown jewel of PokerStars. All the players that they represent are there, and it's truly one of the biggest events of the year. And you are coming down, and 12 people left. You're the chip leader. You're eliminated, and you told me the next day when I bumped into you, I congratulated you on your great run, and you said you were down and you felt that you let everyone down. And I was surprised by that statement. I want you to explain in your own words why you felt that way.
Well, the PCA that year was the first year that they're going to do live hole card cameras. Right. It was a really big deal, and they had been promoting it a lot. And I was the last Team Pro left, and PokerStars was really supporting me. It was nice having them there, rooting me on, and they wanted me to make the final table. Being sort of, we started the boom back in 2003, and this was going to be a new thing, and I was going to be a part of it, which was going to be really, really cool. And I was a lot more proud of the run I made in that tournament than my 2003, just because the skill level of people that have improved and how difficult that tournament was. But not making that final table, given the situation that it was the live hole card game and all that stuff, I really felt like I let a lot of the people at PokerStars down, because I really wanted to make that final table for them.
Joe Hashim, the 2005 World Series Main Event Champion, one of your teammates for a number of years with PokerStars, was quoted by ESPN by saying that he felt that you were one of the most underrated poker players in the world, and that by winning the World Series Main Event, you had been paying for it ever since. Tell us what it means for someone like Joe to say that about you.
Well, first of all, it's obviously really nice of him to say. We'd played a lot together, and I think that we both have a good understanding of where we are in poker, and I consider him a friend, first of all, but it's also, I feel like my game is pretty good. I don't get a lot of respect, which is fine with me. I mean, it's not really about getting respect on the poker table. It's actually better to have a good image of, people wanting to outplay you and bluff you all the time. So it's actually good to have a bad image. But yeah, it was definitely nice to hear him say, and I've had other people come up and confide in me saying the same thing. It is definitely nice to hear. I mean, you're human. You want to hear that kind of stuff. But I'm actually happier with he's a donkey, he's the worst player ever when I sit down at the poker table, because that definitely pays more dividends than, people trying to dodge me and stay out of my way. I want to play pots with people.
You've worked on your game. We've talked about this a lot in private, about how hard you've worked on your game, but I think a lot of people would be surprised that you've worked on other games, specifically Omaha. You've taken the title down with Omaha. Tell us how you feel your Omaha game is compared to your No Limit game.
Well, I'm a gambler by heart, and Hold'em's definitely a lot of gamble. But if you want real gamble, you play PLO.
That's right.
So about, 2005, I started dabbling in PLO, and I just was addicted to it. I think it's the greatest game. I love playing heads-up PLO. I think it's the best form of poker there is, and I'm probably addicted to it. I just, I love the thrill of, trying to figure out 4 cards in a guy's hand instead of 2, and it's really something I'm passionate about and love playing. Haven't had some of the results I want when I'm playing online, but I do enjoy doing it, and it's probably if I'm playing poker, I would prefer to play PLO just because you're in the action every hand. You play No Limit, and if you play an our lead tie, you don't play any hands. If you play like me, you play a few hands too many. PLO, you get to play almost every hand, so it's fun.
Well, just to give some stats, since the World Series main event, you've had over 20 cashes, won almost $1 million, 8 final tables, 2 titles, a couple of runners-up, of course, the 2011 heads-up national championship against Eric Seidel. What was that like? That was an incredible atmosphere. You are Eric Seidel, yourself, Jonathan Duhamel, Andrew Roble. I mean, this was really kind of old school and new school. Icons, the new champ. I mean, what a great atmosphere for that Final Four. Tell us a little bit about that.
Anytime you make it deep in a tournament, it's like the best feeling ever. Day ones and early on in the tournaments are terrible, but as you make it deep, it's always great. And making it down to the final really had revenge on my mind. Eric Seidel actually knocked me out in the round of 16 the year before, and I didn't play very well against him the year before, so it was for me more of a redemption. I was actually looking forward to playing him again, and I felt like I had worked on my game. After I won the World Series and I got the second WPT, I actually got complacent. I thought, I'm one of the better players in the world. I don't need to study.
It's an easy game.
Yeah, it really is an easy game. And the game obviously changed a lot, and I didn't keep up with it. And so I actually started working on my game, especially my heads-up game. And I really felt like, this year I was going to, get my revenge on Eric and take him down. Obviously that didn't happen, but there's always next year.
That's right. There's always a. Well, Chris Moneymaker, you really are. Thank you for the candid interview, and you really did change the face of poker. I think on behalf of everyone out there across the world, we thank you for doing what you did and being such a great poker ambassador. So, Chris, thanks for joining us here on the Bernard Lee Poker Show. Chris Moneymaker here on the 5th anniversary of the Bernard Lee Poker Show. We're very privileged to have had him and to talk about his career and how he has helped move the game to where it is today. Next week, we're going to talk with the man who helped define the November 9 for the World Series of Poker, the chip leader, the original chip leader, and 3rd place finisher of the 2008 World Series main event. Dennis Phillips will join us here on the Bernard Lee Poker Show. And as always, may you always go in with the best hand, and may you never get unlucky. Good night, everybody.